What's happening, everybody? It's Troy here. Welcome back to my channel, guys. Thank you so much for being here with me. Today, we are going to be doing another episode in my series titled Hybrid Highlights. As you guessed it, I'm going to be showing you a hybrid today, and it is one of my favorite dendrobiums for the fact that it is easy to grow, but it blooms all the time, so very easily. So I thought I'd bring some light on this dendrobium. Maybe you guys have it in your collection already, or maybe you are looking to expand your collection and you'd really like an awesome dendrobium to put into it. If so, this video is for you. But before we get into the video, if I could encourage you all to maybe like the video, of course, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to turn on that notification bell. That'd be fantastic. And with that said, guys, let's get into this video. I'm dying to share it with you. So this, guys, I present you my Dendrobium Norita Chip. This is an awesome hybrid, and that's why I wanted to bring it to your all's attention. I got this orchid in 2023, I believe, from Carmela's. It was my first volume order that I did from them, and I was so pleased that this came in there. Let's tell you a little bit about the background before I tell you why I like it so much. So this was registered by Winning Orchids in 2022. Winning Orchids is a wholesaler out in Hawaii on the Big Island. So I imagine maybe they supply to Carmela's, and that's how I ended up with this orchid. And there's only 3 species in this background. So it's Nora Tokunaga crossed onto microchip, and it is 50% Atroviolaceum, 25% aberrans, and then 25% Rhodostictum. This has got 3 great species in its background. All of them come from New Guinea, and all of them take about the same temperature range, which is intermediate to warm. I personally am growing mine intermediate, and it does fine for me. I would say this orchid bloomed 9 months to maybe 3 weeks off and has been blooming ever since. I repotted it. I did a repot 5/25. So in May of this year, this orchid took about 3 weeks off and then has been blooming for me ever since. If we look at the orchid right now, I have spikes coming out on it, and I'll do a close-up so you guys can see, but this orchid's not even finished blooming yet, and I already have spikes coming in, which is one of the reasons why I like it. If we also look at all 3 of the species in the background, we're looking at compact size dendrobiums, Latouria type dendrobiums that are compact. So this is perfect for growing indoors or outdoors. And if you have a warmer grow space outdoors, this orchid would perform very well for you. In my personal grow space, it goes down to 58 degrees Fahrenheit in the winter time. And then in the summertime, we are looking about 76 to 77 degrees Fahrenheit. The humidity in the grow spaces are between 60 and 80% year round for me. In the spring and summer months, I have closer to 80% humidity. And then in the winter months, I have closer to 60% humidity. And this orchid doesn't really seem to be phased by good or bad humidity. This orchid also came early on in my growing. And gosh, I don't think I've ever overwatered this orchid or underwatered it. It doesn't really seem to care either way. It's growing under medium light, and it seems totally happy with that. I guarantee you this would perform better for me if I put it under higher light, but it really doesn't seem to need it. It does so well under the current conditions that I have. And it sits on the mantle in my living room, and that's a very narrow mantle, so it doesn't really need much space either. Um, it's just such an easy orchid to perform so well. I have really nothing bad to say about this. As far as pests go, I've had maybe spider mites on this just a couple of times, which is crazy because I've had spider mites in my collection since the beginning. There are periods when we get rid of them for a little while, but for the most part, guys, there are spider mites. I just keep them at bay as much as possible. But they'll go after my danfowls and take leaves right off of them. And they don't do that with this orchid. I've seen maybe just a couple of times there's some webbing from leaf to leaf or something. And that was more in the beginning of when I had this orchid. Now that I've had it in my care for a few years and I feed this orchid really well, uh, uh, the leaves on it are almost like plastic. I feed Jack's two-part system, and then of course I supplement with cow mag and Epsom salt and things like that. But these leaves are so thick and hard that I think that keeps mites away from this plant. So for a dendrobium, we don't really have spider mite issues with it. Like I said, it doesn't matter what kind of watering schedule you have. It's never thrown a fit on me. And I really much think you could grow this partially shady to full sun if you were growing outdoors. If you were down in Florida, I think this plant would do really well for you. I would just pull it inside if it got down below like 55 degrees. Maybe this could go down to 50 degrees. I don't know. I personally wouldn't feel comfortable with that. I'd probably pull it in at 55 degrees. So that's probably the only restriction that you'd have with this orchid is you'd have to keep it on the intermediate to warm side, which most of our homes are intermediate temperatures. So I don't think that would be an issue for anyone. And the blooms are fragrant. So they get their form from the Atroviolaceum, which makes sense because there's 50% of the species in the background. And the coloration kind of comes in from the Rhoda strictum. If you have Roy Tokunaga, I think that this is very similar to that, just more compact. And then the patterning is different in the blooms. The fragrance is wonderful. Um, it's not a heavy fragrance, but it's not light either. I would say it's in the middle. So as I'm approaching the orchid, I can detect the fragrance as I don't know, I'd say about 2 feet from the orchid. And then of course it'll get stronger as you get closer to it, but it's nothing heavy, nothing that you're going to smell as soon as you walk into the door of your home or walk into the door of your greenhouse. It's not going to be that orchid that's overpowering everything. But it's not faint either. You definitely know it has a fragrance, and it's a jasmine gardenia type fragrance. It's beautiful, kind of powdery. I think it's an absolute wonderful fragrance, and I really enjoy the color and the shape of the bloom. I think that this has more of an appealing bloom than Roy Tokunaga just because of the shape of it and the patterning. It might be a smaller bloom. I don't know. There's just something more appealing about the patterning on these blooms. And of course, I'm going to insert some footage, some close ups, so we can see where I have new spikes coming and we can actually see these blooms close up. But that's about all I have to say for Norita Chip. I think that if you are new to dendrobiums, this would be a perfect dendrobium to start with. Latourias are kind of a little bit tougher, I think. They're not as finicky. Like your nobiles have to have their dry, cooler winter rests in order to bloom well for you in the spring. You don't have to worry about anything like that. I don't change up my watering from the summer months to the winter months. It stays pretty much consistent for this orchid year round. I don't have to increase the lighting in the winter. It doesn't require that. It stays under the same lighting year round. So it doesn't really ask for much, and it'll bloom 9 months straight through. It'll put out new spikes. Your other ones will die off, but you'll have those new spikes, and it'll just be a constant cycle of blooms. And so that's what I have for you guys on Norita Chip. This is Microchip by Nora Tokunaga. And like I said, I got this from Carmela's. I don't know if they have any more in stock. I know that Orchid Web or Orchid Limited, however you know them, I know that they had some in stock once upon a time. So if you ever do come across this orchid, I highly recommend that you pick it up. It's going to stay about 16 to 18 inches, the canes, from the base of the orchid or the top of the pot up is about 16 to 18 inches. So it doesn't really get too tall for a dendrobium. And it might bush out a little bit more for me, but this is what we're looking at right here, guys. This is a mature plant, and I think she is wonderful to add to your collection. So if you guys have this plant, let me know in the comments down below. If you guys enjoyed this video, let me know. I appreciate hearing from y'all. And with that said, guys, you enjoy the rest of your evening, and thank you for stopping by.